and welcome back to Watches Tonight. I'm your host, Tommaso. Thank you for joining me from far flung.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Watch Insider. My name is Brian, and thank you all for logging on.
Hey, welcome back. It's Thursday, Trading Desk. I appreciate you guys logging back in.
Okay, Jonathan S. asks, hey Tim, what will be the cliches of our era that appear dated from the perspective of future collectors in the year 2040? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. There is a magic 8-ball somewhere on the set. I know we have it. I don't know where it is, but I won't need it. This is a great query because it opens the door to a quick retrospective. Namely, what do we consider dated from our vantage point? Well, we look back and see steel yellow gold two-tone as a style inextricably stuck in the 80s and 90s alongside DeLoreans and Trolls, respectively. I'm not really a fan of the Trolls. I am a fan of the DeLorean. That one, retrospectively, is cool. Rubber straps aren't going away, but they became the butt of jokes in the 2000s for ubiquity and visual excess, after AP and Patek Philippe essentially gave rubber straps their blessing within high horology during the late 1990s. During the 2000s, the rubber strap became a cliche, and it still feels that way, especially on certain timepieces. In our era, I would say NATO straps are the craze of the 2010s, even if I believe we're in the final 5 minutes of this particular trend. Instagrammer Jed McCormack has highlighted adroitly how some NATO strap matches are likely to endure the test of history, and also applications that are less likely to stand the test of time, alongside John Lennon's Rolls-Royce. And make no mistake, John Lennon's Rolls-Royce is the ultimate period piece for those with the means. Full ceramic case watches. Let's talk about them because I think they are going to be a thing of the past. Back in 2012, when the PAM 438 Tutanero came out, you could still plausibly say that ceramic watches, full case, full bracelet, were the next big thing. It turned out not to be the case. Here's the deal. They are scratch resistant, but they are also frangible. You can fracture them, you can crack them. And not only can you crack and destroy them, but the case replacement becomes mandatory, and they are ruinously expensive, even for entry-level watches with ceramic cases. So I feel like we've seen a pullback from ceramic cases. Ceramized is the new hip thing. You have either a titanium or an aluminum core, and then a ceramic layer is grafted onto the exterior. The outside is ceramized. For a great example of this, take a look at Zenith's ceramized cases. It gives you a case that can't fracture, that is feather light, that is hypoallergenic, and on its outside is just as scratch resistant as the old full ceramic. Another phenomena that I think will look dated in the future, and I do believe this is going to be very much of our era. It's going to be one of those things that a collector 21 years hence is going to point to and say, yeah, 2018, 2019, but it's going to be blue dials. And while the best blue dials will endure forever, that watch will never date. In fact, it precedes the modern blue dial trend because it came out in 2009. But I do believe that most of the current avalanche of blue dial watches, that's a quick blue dial watch image search on Google. That is an image search for blue dial watch, and I could have scrolled downward into infinity. It's just a bit much. I do think they will be as easy to place as products of our era as tail fins are in the eyes of future watch collectors. Now, we like tail fins. I'm a fan, but they do make it easy to locate in a temporal sense that particular style and that particular car. That's a 1959 Cadillac, and even my mom would be able to get within 5 years of the manufacturer of that vehicle guessing cold. Now, I should say that it's not that we don't love them, but stuff like that and today's blue dials will be collected by people who are connoisseurs of nostalgia and irony in the future. I'm also going to say that rose gold watches are going to look dated. Each era has its uncool metal, and it's usually the previous era's cool metal, which is to say, during my grandpa's heyday in the 1950s and 60s, white gold watches were considered to be something of an old man's choice. The people who were in their prime during the Depression years generally didn't want to wear gaudy colored gold. So through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, yellow gold became almost the standard gold to the exclusion of everything else. In the early 1970s, Rolex even discontinued rose gold on most of its watches. Here's the thing. Today, the sight of a yellow gold watch evokes images of retirement ceremonies. It's the watch you get for retirement. Werther's Original Candies, bought by the bag. Shuffleboard and Sunday senior specials at Golden Corral. That's the image of the small, or petite, let's say, yellow gold watch today. And I believe that my generation, which will start to enter its 60s in the 2040s, will expect our once hip mandatory precious metal, rose gold, to be a calling card of those contemplating or already on Social Security and wondering whatever happened to blue dial watches.
Tim, why don't we get us started? We've got some really interesting watches here on the table. Where do you want to take us
The
first?
strangest watch on the table, and that's even considering the IWC Da Vinci. A full precious metal Breitling Superocean, 1990s. This was Breitling under the Schneider family in its pomp. The 90s were great for Breitling across every model line. Chronomat, Colt, Superocean, Montbrilliant, and Navitimer. Breitling really was the it luxury watch brand of that era, and this was one of the richest offerings. A bit ridiculous, a dive watch on a full gold bracelet, and of course the Superocean, not quite the Submariner, a timepiece that someone would really have to love inside and out to purchase at retail back then, when the price of this watch could have come darn close to buying you a Ducati 996.
And what's so interesting about this watch, and I brought this on the show after seeing it into the vault, and we're going to compare it to one other watch here on the show, but it came out in an era when somebody would walk into the store. You really didn't have as much research going on online where people were going and looking in advance to see what they would purchase, and somebody was buying this watch instead of a Rolex or instead of a Patek or instead of a old gold watch like that, simply because it was a bigger, sportier, more rough and tumble type of piece.
And I'll also say this, watch shopping online was almost unheard of during the 90s. So someone truly did walk in, unprompted, fall in love with this piece and walk out of it, because that's how watch retail was done in the 90s. Back then, it would have been considered huge. Today, you can see on my wrist, it's actually a reasonable size. The combination of the yellow gold and the blue sunburst dial in that metallic tone it's extravagant, but it's also explosive, as you can see what it's doing in the soft light of our studio. And you can see that it also has a handsome full Arabic numeral dial, which gives it a lovely technical instrument-like quality.
So, I just think the watch is freaking awesome. Like, first off, it's not a watch that you're probably ever going to see on somebody else's wrist ever again. Number two, there's no way that they made a lot of these. Number three, if you're looking for an all gold watch that's got a retro vintage vibe that pops in addition to it being all yellow gold, I just think it's something that sets itself apart from, let's face it, all the other presidents out there that you can just purchase.
I'll also say this, it's a timepiece that wears surprisingly well, and how much do you dig that first generation professional bracelet in yellow gold? Yellow gold's in a watch this chunky, boisterous, and sports oriented.
But it doesn't feel that large. It doesn't feel that large. Like, just because you get overall, like, what is it? A 40,
it doesn't
41
look
and
that large
to 40.
It feels large on the wrist. It's not a big watch, but it's a watch with a big presence. And it is a lot of gold. With the way the Breitling case is built, it is simply massive.
Yellow does not do me any favors.
You know what? I think it works surprisingly well. Honestly, you kind of do need to have the skin tone for it, but the
with
blue
this
is
color
universal.
strap, it could also be really cool.
Yeah, the blue is universal.
Yeah.
You could tone this down on a leather strap, and it would look very cool.
We are going to do a this or that poll. It's kind of what we do. You beat me last time, I believe.
I sure did. This time I don't think I have a chance, but
No? I think you do. I think it's a good pick. Anyhow, I did wrist shots first, so I'll let you go first for this or that.
all right. So the theme of it was...
We actually have...
Well, actually, you know what? It was your pick again. Introduce it, and then I'll talk about mine first.
All right, so the idea with talking about Patek and what we kind of stepped on earlier is all the steel stuff, all the hype behind the stuff that you can't get. All of our customers are now starting to look at value propositions. What can I get other than that? So the pick was, there was no price range. It was just, what's a unorthodox Patek that you would pick and
Hard
actually
sale.
have in your, what's the quote unquote dog, right? That everybody sees the watch and goes, I don't know, that you would actually have in your collection. And I have my pick for a very long time in the back of my head has always been, a possibility. And when I mentioned it to you right away, you were like, I know what it is. So why don't you tell us what your your hard sale watch was.
Sure. So, the Patek Flamme. I have a thing, like, I love little dress watches, and I think in this day and age, women go for more oversized watches, which we talk about quite a bit, but there's just something to be said about having like a dainty dress watch, and to me this watch is so gorgeous. Obviously there's different variations of it. They do it with diamonds, they do it without diamonds, they do full case set, full bracelets. This I think is the right amount of diamonds. Has it on the bezel, a little bit on the bracelet. The construction of the bracelet is beautiful. We were talking about the hands, and I don't know if you can zoom in on this since it's such a little dial, but it has these twisted hands which kind of look like candy, which I think just, it's such a fun little dress watch. I would definitely wear it to a black tie event. Not an everyday watch, but, I love it. I would put it in my collection for sure.
It's a pretty piece. It's definitely
It's beautiful.
It's funny because I made a joke right before we went live that both of these watches look like they could have been like our grandparents, like, handed down to either one of us. And so real quick, I don't want to volley for her vote, but to do that justice, the bracelet is actually like beautifully woven.
Yeah, it is.
It's
really
cool architecture. It is a tiny little dress watch, but when it's, the small black dress and just the watch makes the outfit, like, I think it's a cool piece.
Yeah, you also think about Cartier that's re-released, the Panther and whatnot, and I feel like it does have that feel. Like I could see it stacking with diamond bangles and really dressing it up and wearing it. It's probably more versatile than I'm giving it credit for, but to me it would be the perfect little black dress.
I think it's
watch.
Important when you see the value proposition in that for an all gold watch that is relatively timeless. I mean, it's a pretty design that stands alone. When you look at what steel Patek 24 cost, and that's also kind of like a dated design, but timeless, which might be contradictory, but it's just what it is when you see it. So this is my pick. We have this piece in the R in the rose, so I pulled it. This is the 5109. I have always liked this tank. Applied Breguet markers. You can see the blue. Very, very pretty piece. Actually, a pretty good size on the wrist. A lot of Patek traditional people will say this is a big watch, too big. For me, I think this is perfect. If you are into the Reverso 1931 size, this is an excellent watch. Manual wound, just nice, simple tank, traditional Patek for not a lot of money. I mean, you can pick these up. I personally, I don't know if I said this already, the white gold version has this really, really pretty dial, which if I was going to buy one would be the white gold.
I would go with the white gold too.
The contrast on the markers of the white dial is a little bit more stark, but the rose is actually pretty. And I just want to, so I have a right now, a 7.25 inch wrist. And you guys have seen 44 millimeter Panerais on me, Submariners, obviously the Bulgari.
It does wear similar to some of the Reversos, and it's
hands down
ultra thin. It is really thin, and it really does look nice on the wrist, much nicer than you would think it does.
So hands down, I would buy this before I bought a 1931. Just the Reverso is cool, but there's some, it's a solid gold Patek. What do you want? It's really, really cool. So, if you can get these for 12 to 15 grand, depending what they are. And I think it's, some people would say it's a dog. Some people would, have to find their reason to buy it. But I've always kind of liked this model. So I knew exactly what I was going to pick when we came up with that.
It's funny, we both had that reaction.
Yeah.
Knowing exactly what we were going to pick.